In this section, we consider how laughter scaled up to include more and more people. Robin Dunbar makes the assertion that social grooming scaled upwards from the starting point of laughter to include more people through singing, especially as singing shares with laughter and speech breath control that leads to segmentation of vocalic utterances. Such shared grouped utterances as singing also triggers the same pleasurable chemical release of endorphins, as is the case with grooming and laughter, while increasing a sense of belonging and social bonding with others. But first, we need to consider why laughter and humor matter for leadership and followership. Evolutionary leadership theory builds upon the 10 fundamental theories of leadership often used to answer the question, why do we have followership and leadership? All of these theories are useful for understanding leadership and can be seen in the literature as providing different lenses by which scholars and practitioners view and exercise leadership. However, of these, evolutionary leadership theory provides insight into how followers and leaders communicate by considering the followers first. Laughter, elicited by humor, is important for developing those bonds that connect people together. The observable audience responses of followers in dialogue with their leaders provides insight into the emergent quality of charismatic leadership and the leadership traits that the individual exhibits. There are a whole range of observable audience response vocalizations. They include such vocalizations as applause, cheering, laughter, booing, and chanting. While laughter may be seen as the cornerstone for all of these, both in terms of evolutionary roots and developmentally, all types provide important information when provided by a group. First, these vocalizations are all automatic and highly contagious responses to leaders that provides insight into the type and intensity of connection the audience has with both the leaders and with each other. They also provide insight into the bond formation process between the followers and the leader, with higher intensity possibly identifying memorable and defining moments during political events. With that in mind, my colleagues in the University of Arkansas Communication and Psychological Sciences departments carried out a study during the first 2016 presidential general election debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump to better understand observable audience response. One major question that we dealt with in the 2016 presidential debate study was the effect of observable audience response from the studio audience on those watching from a distance. In other words, we were interested in the intra-audience effect that observable audience response would have. To answer this question, we had 362 University of Arkansas undergraduate students take part in a study in which they were randomly assigned to one of 7 rooms that held from 42 to 57 participants for the study. These participants largely self-identified as Republican Party members, with half of them doing so. In comparison, just under 28% identified as Democratic Party members, and the rest identified as independent or non-affiliated. To carry out the study, we had observers in each room that coded for observable audience response based upon type, time, and which candidate elicited the group vocalization. We then compared the room response with the in-person audience responses. On the left side of this slide, we see the 34 studio audience observable audience responses and how strong they were in Study 1. Of these, 21 involved laughter, 9 involved applause cheering, 1 involved laughter and applause, while 2 had booing alone and 1 had booing along with laughter occurring. The right side of our slide, which is from Study 2, shows how each room responded to the debate studio audience observable audience responses. Overall, we found 130 unique observable audience responses by our students across the 7 rooms. What we found in Study 2, which consider how participants in the rooms watching the debate responded to the studio audience's observable audience response, was that there was a moderately strong relationship between not just the observable audience response in general, but laughter more specific. We found that laughter was more strongly related to University of Arkansas student laughter than any other form of response, including applause. This might be due to laughter being automatic and stereotyped, and thus more likely to be easily mimicked. And given that the participants were younger, with an average of just under 20 years of age, and not knowing each other in each of the rooms, they might have succumbed to social pressure to signal to each other that they were fellow students and they were enjoying themselves. Study 3, which was carried out at Texas Tech University at the same time, albeit with a smaller number of participants that were older and predominantly Republican Party identifiers, provides insights as to what might be going on. With only 34 participants, the study looked at moment-to-moment evaluation of the candidate speaking through the use of handheld continuous response dials. Specifically, the 5 seconds after each observable audience response's onset was analyzed for 19 laughter events and 11 applause cheering events. While laughter did not have an intra-audience effect on the evaluations of candidate likability, applause cheering appears to have had a stronger effect. This supports the likelihood that laughter is mimicked, but not necessarily emotionally contagious. Further analysis found that political party identification affected how participants responded to the observable audience response. Overall, we found that the applause cheering evoked by Donald Trump during this debate may have affected unaffiliated viewer perceptions to a greater extent than did those for Hillary Clinton. While we do not expect strong partisans to be as affected, having an impact on the unaffiliated is a powerful finding. What we can conclude about the study carried out here is that observable audience response can do multiple things. In general, it can bring people together as a group, help identify those not a part of the group, and can alter people's opinions about personality traits. At the same time, it might be fake because it is so readily mimicked. In summary, observable audience response such as laughter, applause cheering, and booing are important because they reflect the emergent properties of individuals becoming groups. This helps us understand the social identity of groups with its evolutionary norms of followership and in-group versus out-group identities. While more work needs to be done to understand all these different types of observable audience response and how they influence our democratic institutions, placing the emphasis on the followers and the response is perhaps the most important starting point for a functioning society.